Hey folks, Real Honesty with Jarmith I'm Jarmith. This is my top 10 worst Slammiversary matches, where I'm going from Slammiversary 2005 to 2016, and just coming up with the worst of the worst. Now, honestly, taking a look at all the cards from '05 to 2016, there were a lot of really good matches. Really good matches, even if some of the feuds were most of the feuds are good. It was a way to culminate a lot of feuds and begin new feuds. And you had some debuts and all this kind of stuff and some good moments. So it was a lot easier for me to find the best matches. Hard for me to narrow it down to 10, but a lot easier for me to find best matches. Worst matches took a little bit, but I found 10. I hope you enjoy. Number 10, Team 3D versus the James Gang Bingo Hall Brawl 2006. James Gang was boring in any incarnation. Sorry, the New Age Outlaws, I get why they were popular, but to me they were overrated. James Gang was overrated. Voodoo King Mafia, when they were rivals, it was bad. When they were the Old Age Outlaws in WWE for a little bit, it was bad. Now, I get this was a fine tag match as it was, but it's like the whole Bingo Hall Brawl, it was just a way try and, recapture some ECW magic. And I mean, it also didn't help that WWE was relaunching the ECW brand. So Team 3D figured, okay, let's just do this. I mean, granted, it might have been Dixie who suggested it, even if she probably can't spell ECW. But this was a match that it would have been a fine tag match with a little bit of brawling thrown in, but neither of these teams were the best workers. And James Gang in particular, I mean Road Dogg in particular, was never the best worker, though he became probably the most famous Armstrong, maybe besides his dad. This just wasn't something that I particularly was interested in. It was blah to me. It's like, oh, this hardcore action, hooray. This is whatever. And Sting versus Matt Morgan is number 9, 2009 Slammiversary. They shouldn't have had the stipulation where if Matt Morgan wins, he takes Sting's spot in the Main Event Mafia, or he becomes a member of the Main Event Mafia. They couldn't really decide on the stipulation, but that was stupid. But they should have Matt Morgan win. They should have had it be a straight-up match, young guard versus the old guard. Matt Morgan should have won. There was no reason for Sting to win, because Sting was going to be seen as a big star anyway. Matt Morgan deserved this push, and he just never seemed like he got to where he should have gotten. And it was just really, really bad. I mean, it's like, for as talented as that guy was, and still is, I'm sure, but especially at this point, there's no reason why he shouldn't have been featured better. I mean, he lost to a lot of older guys. I mean, it's like when he lost Angle at Bound for Glory, it was really bad, only because they should have pulled the trigger on that. But Sting beat him. I mean, it was a sloppy match. It was not a good mismatch. It was just not really that good. Morgan had to dumb down a lot of his offense for Sting to face him and beat him. Good job. Anyway, Matt Morgan versus Hernandez at number 8 from the 2010 Slammiversary. Matt Morgan and tag team partners didn't work out so well. Matt Morgan and Abyss teamed up, didn't win, tag titles split up. Matt Morgan and Hernandez teamed up, split up, feuded, and this was a limp match between two pretty talented big guys. And it shouldn't have ended in DQ. You should have had underhand tactics, won by the heel, something like that. Or babyface gets a shocking win, but heel gets his heat back, and that way you don't have an end to the feud right away. It felt like really limp. Like, okay, you can't use Slammiversary to just extend a feud. Have it be some big match, and there you go. It just felt like they could have done more with it, and they really didn't, and they botched the whole thing. Number 7, Hernandez versus Kid Cash, Slammiversary 2012. Boy, Hernandez and Matt Morgan are making a lot of appearances here. Kid Cash returning to Impact Wrestling was weird. And it was weird not because Kid Cash wasn't talented, but just because he hadn't been on Impact Wrestling for a bit. I mean, I think one of the last times he was in wrestling really was, I know he was in WWE in 05, 06. That didn't really work out so well. I mean, I'm sure he made appearances since then, but it was just weird to see that he was there, and it's like, it didn't really last long, it didn't really work, they didn't really use him well. And Hernandez getting the win, like, after just 6 minutes, it was a really quick match and not particularly interesting. Number 6, James Storm versus Crimson. They hyped up Crimson to godlike levels with having an undefeated streak and all this kind of stuff. And then he was gone for like a year. I can't remember if it was because he was injured or creative differences or what. I don't exactly remember what it was. They had this whole thing return, with Crimson's return. And then James Storm beats him within like a few minutes. And I'm like, and then Crimson, I think, was gone from the company soon after that. I mean, I believe it just, it was just bizarre as a way to use him. I mean, I'm not going to say Crimson was the best worker, but he certainly was a decent worker, and they had at least something going with the guy. And they just pulled the plug on it right away. I mean, it's like James Storm winning didn't bother me, but it's just the way they did it. It was bizarre and weird and bad use of both guys. Number 5, Madison Rayne versus Roxy Laveau. Well, Roxy at this point. Title versus Knockouts title versus career match from the 2010 Slammiversary. I'm not putting this on here because either of them are bad workers. Far from it. Madison Rayne's not the best worker, but she's a decent worker. Roxy I always felt was underrated. The reason I'm putting this on here is because it was for a title versus career match. Okay, 8 to 10 minutes minimum. 4.5 minutes. I mean, maybe 5 minutes. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Roxy was clearly on her way out anyway, but it was a ridiculous way to use use a knockouts division and the knockouts title. It was just not good, not a proper way to do it. It was rushed too much. Like, you should have had it go at least 8 to 10 minutes. Make it seem like something else. I mean, you have it where it like ends after just 5 minutes. I mean, that shows what you thought of Roxy. That shows what you thought of Madison, because you could have given her a lot of heat after taking everything from Roxy. She finally beats her underhand tactics. Oh, that dastardly heel, or something like that. And no, they didn't do that. They botched the whole thing. It was just not good. Number 4, Bob Backlund versus Alex Shelley at the 2007 Slammiversary. I like Bob Backlund. I like Alex Shelley. 2007 Bob Backlund should have not beaten Alex Shelley. It was not good. It was not good at all. Why was this happening? I mean, I like Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund wrestling in 2007 didn't bother me. But him beating Alex Shelley, I mean, a young up and coming babyface who had done pretty well at that. I mean, actually, Shelley was like a heel at this point, but still, Shelley had more of the upside than Backlund did. It just made no sense. Made no sense to me, and it was just really, really bizarre. And I mean, especially for just being a 4-minute match. It just had been 10 minutes, and there might have been questions, even though Backlund was in pretty good condition, if Backlund would have been able to continue going, for too long. But still, have it go like 8 minutes and have Shelley beat him. It just was bizarre, and it was a weird way to use both people. So there we go. Number 3, Ron Killings versus The Outlaw. From 2005 Slammiversary. God, it's just so embarrassing. I mean, when Truth is the best worker that you have in the ring, that's just not good. It's not that Billy Gunn, The Outlaw, Kip James, Monty Sop, whatever. Well, Monty Sop's his real name, but his, the whole Outlaw thing was just because of a name discrepancy. But it was just ridiculous. It was just ridiculous because this is during the time when you had the 3 Live Crew, which was Ron Killings, BG James, and Conan. And you had, the Outlaw trying to get, with his old friend and everything, Brian James, like trying to reform the New Age Outlaws, and it was not good. It was sloppy. James, or, the Outlaw botched quite a bit of his stuff. It was just not good at all. Not very well done. It was bad. I mean, Ron Killings getting the win, even though the Outlaw's shoulder was not down. It was ridiculous. I mean, you could tell. Watch the DVD back. You can tell that his shoulder wasn't down. And I'm watching, I'm just like, I mean, he has a pretty legit reason to be upset. But then he attacks him, and it just, it was not good. It was not a good match at all. Number 2, Shane Douglas versus Christopher Daniels from the 2009 Slammiversary. They used Daniels weird in 2009. He had some pretty good matches, but he also had some weird stuff, like where he was wrestling Shane Douglas in his comeback. And look, Shane Douglas did hurt his ankle apparently during this match, and that's why he was limited. But I'm sorry, he wouldn't have even been able to do anything even on two good ankles. Because he was washed. He was beat up. He wasn't able to wrestle anymore. He hadn't been in wrestling as much. I believe he'd been a teacher, and I think he'd even worked at a Target at one point. Or maybe that came after the stint in TNA. I don't remember. But I know that Shane Douglas had not been wrestling as much. Because of age and mileage and all that. And Daniels beating him was logical. That's what should have happened. But it was just so ridiculous. It's like, why is this match happening? Why is this match happening? It was sloppy. Like, Douglas couldn't do anything. Ankle injury aside or not, he couldn't do anything before that. It just was not going to work at all. Number 1, the Voodoo Kin Mafia versus Basham and Damaja. This was the Basham brothers coming to Impact Wrestling, and Voodoo Kin Mafia was the James Gang, the Old Age Outlaws, and all that. And Basham and Damaja were a team managed by Christy Hemme, the fiery redhead who was beautiful and became a ring announcer after she had suffered an unfortunate neck injury. But she had had a feud going with Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn kept making a bunch of chauvinistic comments or whatever about women, which apparently is part of the reason why Hemme left WWE. Not exactly sure on the reason, but I heard that's what it was. Or, sexual advances, which is entirely possible knowing the kind of company that Vince keeps. The reason that this was bad is because you had VKM run through a whole bunch of teams that Hemme had. And what was really bad about this was, okay, they could win. They could win this match and fine. It was over in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I mean, that's just not a good use of your talent at all. That's not a good use of your pay-per-view time. Not a good use of it at all. That was ridiculous. Absolutely terrible shit. It was bad, and I mean, which is really bad considering the 2007 Slammiversary had some pretty good matches on the card. And those two were just not them. I mean, what I listed at number 4 and what I listed at number 1. Anyway. So that's what I got to say about that. Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I've said? Like, share, comment, subscribe. My Twitter link is in the description. It's been Real Honesty with Jarmethlin. I'm Jarmethlin. I'll see you soon.